Humanity is at a crossroads, and we are dealing with one major problem. And it's a position that we've put ourselves in. The problem is we don't know when information is accurate or not. And we live in such an impulsive society that where we devour whatever comes across our view or our feed or wherever we're getting our information from. And oftentimes this puts us in a position where we have two paths. We either believe it wholeheartedly and we buy into it and it becomes a part of us, or there's another group of people that thinks about what is being said to us. Most people who have control over information believe that we're too dumb to figure things out on our own, to decipher the truth. But we're not stupid. If we're left to our own thoughts and the ability to think about the information that's coming across our plates, we are the best tools to be able to figure out what the truth is in that. Because there's so many stories that are out there floating around and different perspectives on stories, there's a lot of what people have called misinformation, where a lot of times it's just a different perspective that someone has on the story. It's not an outright lie. So part of it is definitions have been eroded over the last few years, and we don't really know what that means anymore. What does misinformation mean? When I say that, you have a certain viewpoint on it, but people with different ideologies from you have a completely different viewpoint on what misinformation actually is. Now, there is genuine misinformation out there. There's times when people in companies, they lie on purpose because it fits into their bias and they're trying to push their ideology. They're really salespeople. They're not, media companies really. They're not just sharing the news. They're trying to sell you on what they believe. And if you just watch one thing or you listen to one person, there's not really a great way to decipher what the truth is in the situation. There's bias in everything, and bias by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. Think about your favorite sports team or your favorite color. You're biased to those things. We can't root out bias in our lives, but we can be aware of it. We can be vigilant to know when our bias is affecting how we interact with the world and how we interact with others. So bias is then also inherent in the companies and people who are feeding us information and how the information gets to us. It's already passed through a bias filter before it gets to our own. So when you manipulate information like that before it gets to the source or the end user, essentially, which is who we are when we're evaluating information, it's already gone through bias. It's not perfect. It's not even the whole story ever, which is why it's important to get our information from different places. Now, as you're listening to me, you're probably thinking about the news or the media or those types of things, social media as well. And yes, I'm absolutely talking about that. But it's not just that. I know many people who try and live their lives away from the news and away from social media, and they're pretty successful at it. But that also means that you don't get to interact with the world and what's going on in people's everyday lives. So it means that you're missing something from your life. Now, you might be okay with that. Cool. I'm fine with that too. But for me, I like to engage with all sorts of topics and ideas and people and things. When it's passed through these filters already, it doesn't give me the ability to make decisions on what the truth is about a matter or the best way to tackle a hobby or a problem that I'm facing with my home or my car or with a relationship. When I don't have the unfiltered data as best as possible, because we are humans, it doesn't allow me to make an accurate decision as an individual. Algorithms play a huge role online in perpetuating this problem and creating spaces that we can't break free from, these biases that are pushed towards us. This creates a lot of echo chambers because algorithms want us to engage with what we like, but usually in a way that gets us emotionally charged. So it wants us engaging in the, more erratic types of emotions, fear, hate, happiness as well, laughter, that type of thing. But a lot of times that just becomes a distraction. It gets in the way of us being able to decipher the information that needs to be deciphered. It gets in the way of us being able to, find a good path forward with the information that is at hand. This video is sponsored by Nyched. Nyched is the world's first human interaction platform, and it did something revolutionary. It focused on you first. It put you at the center of the platform. In the development, it thought about the user, you, to decide what is the best way to have a place to interact online. It centers around your interests, and it took away things that most of us maybe don't notice, but when we think about it, we don't like. Things like gatekeepers, people being in the way of our information, and algorithms, things getting fed to us in a programmatic way. And instead, it put the power into the individual's hands, into your hands, and into my hands, so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves about the topics that we want to interact with. If you're interested at all, if anything here piqued your interest, please go to resistthealgorithm.com to learn more. And continue watching these videos, continue liking these things. I love that there's a community growing around Nyched. You being here means you're a part of Nyched, and I thank you for it. Stay tuned because more is coming up. What's the solution? I believe the biggest thing that we can do as individuals is think critically about the situations we're in. Critical thinking, if you're not familiar with it, is taking lots of ideas and thoughts and information and complex things and deciphering which ones kind of connect to each other. And as you start doing that, as you start thinking about the connections between these pieces of information, you start to find a common thread. You start to find the truth in it. I remember a time when this is just the way the world worked. Someone would say something, and you would take all the information that you had, all the knowledge you had already, and you said, no, that's not right. Or someone would make a assertion, and you would do the opposite. You'd say, no, that seems to be correct with the information I have available to me at this time. Critical thinking is so crucial to humanity and being able to communicate with other people and to understand and to listen and to interact with interests and hobbies and all of these sorts of things that, it's second nature in most situations. But when it comes to the online environment, it's something that is not encouraged. Programs and platforms, they're not designed to create critical thinkers. They're designed to create people who just follow the path that's laid in front of them. And that's not how we got here. We got here because we stand on the shoulders of people who thought critically and took a different path and found a different, better way with things, regardless of what the topic is. Pick any topic and that's true. If you're not used to critical thinking, there are two main things I can think of that come to mind that you can practice to become better at critical thinking. And the first would be to just be a skeptic. I'm not saying be skeptical about everything, right? If you see a carrot, it's probably a carrot. But when you're evaluating information or you're trying to learn something new, don't just assume where the information is coming from is 100% correct. Take the time to evaluate it yourself, but just start to question things more. Say to yourself, is that true? Do I agree with it? Based on the information that I have already, does it seem to fit into the puzzle that is the topic that you're trying to evaluate? And skepticism can be helpful in many situations. Whether you're determining to trust a new friend or a new person, or whether you're just trying to figure out if it makes sense to tie this knot this way when you're out camping or something along those lines. Skepticism is an invaluable tool that all of us could work to better in our lives. The second suggestion I would have would be to find different sources of information. And again, this is not just ideologically. I know it's hard to not think about ideology when, discussing a topic like this, but I think this is true with whatever the topic has to be. I have many hobbies that I really enjoy, and there's people I trust in those hobbies because they've proven themselves over the years. But at the same time, it's something that I look at different sources to see if those people are accurate, or to just see a different perspective on the topic. That is a great way to start to move your mindset into one of being a critical thinker. of determining for yourself what is true, what's accurate, what the best way forward is for you. And that's the other thing. People aren't necessarily wrong, but it might not be the right advice or the right perspective for you. You might have other things that get in the way of experiencing, the hobby or the perspective that you want to experience. And it's not the right information for you or the right way to look at the information for you. So you've got to determine that for yourself, because we're all intelligent enough to do that. We are at the center of our own worlds, obviously, because we wake up and we do what's best for us and for our families and, for the people that we care about in our lives. So finding different sources has been extremely freeing for me through life, to be able to listen to different perspectives and then still make the decision. I might not end up in a different place, but I'll be more educated on the way there. Once you've made some of these changes, if you even think this is a good idea or not, it's important to practice these skills to be able to make it second nature. Now, there's a great chance that you're already critically thinking in a lot of areas of your life, but there might be a few areas where you're not. And I would encourage you to take stock of those areas and see if improving critical thinking on those topics would be beneficial for you. I can't think of a scenario where thinking critically isn't a benefit. Now, one of my favorite ways to develop my critical thinking skills is a pretty simple exercise, and you've also probably done it before, but it's to play devil's advocate, to take the opposite side of the stance, right? There's a war between skiers and snowboarders. It's been going on since the dawn of snow, right? Sometimes I argue that snowboarding's better, even though everyone knows that it's not. I'm a huge Penguins fan. There's times when I make the argument that the Flyers are the better team, even though, again, they haven't won a cup since the 70s. So playing devil's advocate is a great way to develop these critical thinking skills. Being able to look at the other side of an issue and say, that's actually a point that I can understand at the very least, if not a good point. I think there's good points on many sides of many arguments. And being able to identify those can only help you and be beneficial in the long run to get you to be able to make better decisions for yourself. We have a major problem with information in this world. Humanity is at a crossroads. We get to decide if we move into an era where we get to have conversations with one another again, and we get to interact with our interests in a way that we most find enjoyable, or we get to move into an era where there's really no return. And I really don't mean to be dire, but I do believe that if we don't make a change here soon, we're going to be in an era where we just eat up whatever's fed to us. We know the best way beforehand because someone told us the best way to do it. And there's no more entrepreneurialism or no more, heart of inventing and that sort of thing. And critical thinking is the solution. It's something you can do on the individual level that fights against this. All of this is a huge reason why I went down the path of creating Nyched. Nyched is the world's first human interaction platform, and it's totally within your control. To learn more, go to resistthealgorithm.com. If you like this video, give it a like. If you disagree with me or you want to have a conversation about this topic, please leave a comment below. It's one of my favorite parts. I love talking with you guys. And if you want to see more, stay tuned because the next video is coming up right